Hey guys, it's me, Brad again. You may remember me from your lesson yesterday. I learned some hard lessons myself, as you might recall. Getting elected president wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. So Mr. Peterson just wanted me to come on and review a few of those things you learned from yesterday, and he thought it might be good for me to hear those again too, because I just keep thinking, like, as president, I'm gonna have all this power, and he's really trying to make it clear to me that it's more limited than I think. So he said for you guys to have your notebooks out because he's going to have you sort of stop and jot when I ask each of these questions. So for the first one, in a second, you'll pause it and just try to answer this in your notebook. The question is, what system did the United States put in place that made it so that one person or one group couldn't have too much power? Okay, I'm going to pause. Okay, so I'm assuming you've already answered that question. The main thing that Mr. Peterson talked about with you guys yesterday was called separation of powers. And he actually wants me to pull up this vocab sheet so you can actually see the definition as I talk about it. So remember, we learned that separation of powers is the idea that the United States government split up the power between multiple branches because they didn't want to be in a situation where there's a king who had all the power. So, that really stunk for me, right? Because I wanted all the power. I thought that's what I was going to have. I was excited. But I don't, right? It's split apart between the executive branch, which would be the president, but the legislative branch is another branch that has power, and so does the judicial branch. So one position, one group doesn't get all the power. So that stinks for me. But I guess Mr. Pearson tries to explain to me that it's good for the whole country, because that way one person who gets overly consumed with power can't just do whatever they want. He mentioned this briefly, but another part of that is checks and balances, which is another vocab word for you guys today. And that means it's a system that allows each branch of government to prevent the other branches from misusing their power. So that means if one of the branches tries to just go ahead and do something they can't do anyway, this is the system put in place to stop them from doing it. Like when I said yesterday that I was going to pass a law, or an executive order that made it so that it was illegal to say anything bad about me, the president. He reminded me that actually the judicial branch would declare that unconstitutional, and would prevent that from actually going into action. So separation of powers and checks and balances are the two important terms for today. Just a few more things I'm going to review, though, from yesterday about those branches. So there was the legislative branch. Who are the different, what are the two different houses in the legislative branch? Okay, I'm going to pause. I want you to jot that answer down in your notebooks. Okay, I'm going to assume you have answered that. First of all, I'm going to say, remember that the legislative branch is also called Congress. And the two houses, hopefully you got, were the Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay, so there's two different houses that make up the legislative branch, and they're the ones that make the laws. Okay, so then there's the judicial branch. What are the different groups that are part of the judicial branch? I'm going to pause for you to answer that in your notebook. Okay, in the judicial branch, there are district courts, there are appeals courts, and at the very highest level, there is the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is like the last level of appeals. They get the final say on any issue if it keeps getting challenged, right? To challenge a ruling is to say you appealed it. Supreme Court has the final say, okay? One more question. And so their role, to remind you guys again, is they interpret the laws and decide whether somebody really did break it or not, okay, in these trials. The last one to review is the executive branch. Let's keep it simple here. Who are the two main people a part of the executive branch? Teachers, if you could pause the video. Students, go ahead and jot your answer down in your notebook. Okay. The answer I hope you got was me, the president, and the vice president. Okay. Now there is another group of people in there too that hopefully you got right in your assignment, and that would be the executive departments. So there are 15 executive departments as well that the president appoints people to, and that are involved in the executive branch. So those are all the people involved with that. Okay. So those are your three branches. And those are going to relate to what you're going to learn about today, because you're going to see how those branches check each other, right? That's the checks and balances, how they prevent each other from misusing their power. So I guess I better leave and start doing what the president does. But I do think now that I've learned all this, the first thing I should probably do is take this crown off, because I guess I'm not really that much like a king. So it's been good seeing you guys. I hope you learned something. I'm going to go get Mr. Peterson so he can do the rest of your lesson. All right. Hey, guys. How's it going? I see you guys got a brief review session with Brad. Hopefully that just kind of refreshed your minds on everything we learned from yesterday. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this checks and balances assignment in a second, but I do just want to not remind you guys. I was going to say remind because I haven't said it before. I want to alert you guys to the fact that a week from tomorrow, so basically next Tuesday, we're going to have our Constitution Crash Course Unit test, okay? And I should have that review sheet posted under materials. So if you go to the classwork section and look for the topic materials, later today, we are going to have Friday is going to be a lesson built around studying for that, but it's not a bad idea to start studying earlier. So I wanted to have that posted so you could start looking at that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the assignment today. The assignment today is going to make sure you guys can see some real scenarios of how one of the branches might try to misuse their power. And then you guys go ahead and figure out who can stop them, which other branch can step in and stop them, and what do they have to do to stop them, okay? And it's all going to center around a handout I have that has some of the big checks and balances for our country's government, okay? I didn't even put everything on there, but I just put some of the most important ones, some of the most common ones you'll see. And notice how I categorize each one by focusing on the checks that are against that branch. So that means if I say examples of checks against the legislative branch, I'm saying what are the different things that the other branches can do to stop the legislative branch from misusing their power, okay? So I got 2 there. I got 3 checks against the judicial branch, and I actually have 4 checks against the president there. Checks against the president, I guess, are just more common, so I picked up a few extra examples there. So let's look then at the assignment. The assignment is called Who Can Stop Them? Okay. And remember, we always need to read the directions. So in the directions, it says, I've included hypothetical scenarios in which public officials, that means politicians or people serving in government, are misusing their power. For each example, explain who can stop them and how they can do it. Use your checks and balances handout. Okay, so let's just look at the first one together. The president pressured Congress to pass a bill, but they chose not to do so. Okay, so president really wanted Congress to pass a certain bill. Congress didn't want to do it. Because of this, he, meaning the president, goes around them and issues an executive order on it, which is a command that has a similar power to a law. So he's basically like, you're not going to pass this law. I'm just going to pass this executive order that makes it happen anyway. The problem is if you keep reading, it says, however, the executive order is unconstitutional. So it means it actually goes against one of the main principles of our Constitution, right? And we can't pass a law, nor can a president pass an executive order that goes against the Constitution. Our Constitution is the thing that everything has to line up with. So I'm asking you, who can stop him and how can they stop him? So one question I want to ask you to help you make sure you know how to look for this is that you need to know on this worksheet, or not this worksheet, on this handout, which category to go to look for the check here. So what I want your teacher to pause it in just a second so you can jot this down. is I want you to jot down, who is this check against, right? Because that's the category I'm going to be looking for. Which branch of government is this check going against that we're looking for? Go ahead and pause the video, and students, answer that in your journal. Okay, so hopefully you put down in your notebook that it was the executive branch, because the president is the one who's trying to do something, right? The president is trying to pass this executive order, and we need to stop him from doing that. So we're looking for a check that goes against the executive branch. So that means I need to not look under examples of checks against the legislative branch, not against judicial, but I got to look for checks against the president. So what are the different things the president might do that the other branches can stop? Okay, so I have 4 examples here. Congress can override the president's veto with a 2/3 vote. So that's if the president vetoes a law by Congress, they can override it if they have enough people. The Senate, which is one of the houses of Congress, the Senate can reject a judge that was appointed by the president if they don't think they're qualified. Congress can impeach the president. So if he commits a crime, they can charge him with that crime. That's what impeaching means. And maybe if they're successful, remove him from office. Or the last one is if the president declares an executive order that is unconstitutional, the Supreme Court can declare it unconstitutional and essentially make it so it's not a law. So it's not an executive order. They're different than laws, kind of. But basically, make it so it can't go into effect. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pause again and have the teachers pause it in a second. And I want you guys to jot down which of those examples is the answer that needs to be done here to stop the president. Which of those 4 is the action that needs to be taken in this scenario? Go ahead and pause it. Okay, hopefully you guys pick this one, because the whole scenario was about how the president passed or declared an executive order that really wasn't constitutional. So the Supreme Court's going to have to step up, right? The Supreme Court is in the judicial branch, and they're going to have to declare it unconstitutional. So for your answer, first it's just who can stop him. I'm going to put both in there to show that I've really learned it. So I'll put the Supreme Court, and then in parentheses, I'm going to put judicial branch. So you really know, so I really know that you know who they are and what they're part of. And then just how they're going to stop them is literally what are they going to do? So again, if we look, it says they're going to declare the executive order unconstitutional. So it's as simple as that. Declare the order unconstitutional. And now I've got the answer. I know who's which branch is capable of stopping them, and I know what they have to do in order to stop him from doing that. Okay? And that's the assignment. So I have gone ahead and helped you out with number 1. There are 7 total, so that means you have 6 more that you need to do just like that. Go through each of them, and then by the end, hopefully you have a good sense for the types of things that people might do to abuse their power, and the way our system is set up so that we can have other branches step in and stop them. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Good luck with the assignment. Give me messages if you guys need any help. See ya.